I want to share with you my vision for African cities. I believe that it's possible for every African city to have the knowledge, means, and the context to have a healthy and balanced life. I also believe that African cities can be safe and well-serviced, that we can have prosperous communities, and we can have memorable places in every city. And that's what I'm committed to. So, where did my journey begin? I want to tell you a little bit of my story. It'll give away how old I am, in case you're wondering from my gray hair. I was born in 1959, and in 1962, Mandela was incarcerated. Suddenly, the world became white, and I was told that I didn't belong in South Africa. So I grew up in the small town, aware that the lights dimmed when I went to my town, Springs on the East Rand, for anyone who knows that part of the world. In 1977, I entered university to study architecture. I had to get a special permit. And I was very well aware that this was an enormous opportunity to get an education, and that this education was giving me the tools to be able to use in service of transformation. In 1994, I started my own practice, was active in my own practice. And at that point, I was able to really use my own stubbornness and instinct and gut around how I would go about using those professional tools. And from then till now, I have pushed every barrier and every boundary to try and make a difference to the way in which we see settlements and public places and spaces. In 1998, my son was born. And he's sitting in the audience. He's 14 now. And I paused and I actually said, do you know what? I am not happy with this world I see around me. In spite of having had many accolades and awards for buildings and projects that we had designed, we're not making a difference. We're not making enough of a difference. So I started seriously looking around, and my husband is here as well. He and I work together in a practice of 30. And we decided that we are going to start formulating our own projects. I was not happy with being the recipient of other people deciding that we're going to fiddle around in these little, small projects trying to make a difference. That was not going to add up. That felt like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. So, fortunately, about 3 or 4 years ago, a very interesting person came into my life. I had met him before, David Pearson, who's also here. And he said to me, I would like you to come and join me and help me design the city. And I thought, wow, that is amazing. Me help you design a city. And it was amazing because his vision was that this was going to be no ordinary city. It had to be a city that was fully serviced, great facilities for education and health, and most importantly, it had to include the poor. Now, this was unbelievable, that a developer would actually say something of that nature. Absolutely unbelievable. So if I look at my journey, and in preparing for TEDx, I realized actually that almost my entire journey in my life had been preparing me to come to this point where I can actually say, I am designing a city for Africa, and we're going to make the biggest difference we can. It's fantastic. And so the lines that you see in the slides up there moved from red, when the world was an impossibility for my even being a professional in the world, to amber, get ready and go, Goven, you know, start being an activist and whatever, and learn those skills, to being a professional. And now I am squarely, and not that I didn't before, but now I am squarely standing in the shoes of being a leader and an integrator. And I can do that because there's this phenomenal bunch of people around me who have stood up, and like me, they have said, enough. Enough of fiddling around with the stuff that we're doing. We've got to have the courage, and we've got to start working to make that difference. And that's what we've started with. So this is the paradigm shift that's required. We need to really find a new way to do these things. So let me share with you the next line. So the little circle, the lovely, colorful circle that you see there, represents the kind of ideas and people that have started coming together to say, to make the city that we desire of our future, we're going to have to work with the things that we know need to work better. Why aren't we getting there, and how are we going to get there? And I'll tell you a little bit more about that just now. this is the circle with the different aspects that we know we have to work with, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that just now. So my son, who's now 14, and if I look at his life, I'm quite clear that my experience of community actually did prepare me for what I'm actually taking on now. It gave me the innate confidence and sense of purpose that, and the understanding of the responsibility that I could take on to do what I'm doing, in spite of it being very bold and very ambitious, that you know, it's something worth doing. My son has not had the same rich experience of community that I had, and I'm sad about that. But I know that very shortly he's going to have to be a student and an entrepreneur, and in his lifetime he has to be a leader and an integrator way faster than me. And for many of you, you're already in that space, because the future we're moving to is so uncertain at every level. Every morning you read the paper and there's just something new thrown at you. Economy is crumbling, society is breaking down, all sorts of bad things happening. However, I live in a world that's the glass half full. We've got to actually continue, pick ourselves up and find the glass half full and move forward. So, how do we do that? So while we were preparing for this, one of the people in my office said to me, why is it that cities have not actually worked out well enough until now? And we've been grappling with that. So this is a diagram that begins to just show some of the kind of clusters of things that go on. And this is kind of like a very simplified version or simplistic version of why current cities are the way they are. But essentially, in the left-hand block, you see leaders, capital, government, and policy. And what's happened over time is that there's been an accretion of decision-making that has had its focus on very different priorities. Based on that set of decisions and understandings, we then have what are applied in city making as integrated development plans or spatial development frameworks or environmental impact assessments. And what they are largely doing is they are trying to fill inside of the existing city the relationship between how much rates are claimed and what services are offered, or infilling the bits that are missing, or adding on existing things to the existing fabric, what can be done, or conserving the land but not really dealing with the development question. In the green blob, you see what happens then is that inside of that, affluent people are making decisions to go and live in gated communities and more affluent enclaves. Business locates wherever it sees the profit being possible to make. The rest of us are left to actually choose between suburbs or very poor informal settlements or slums. And industry then gets located wherever the people are least able to protest and rally the forces. Now, the key decision makers then in the end who are driving this are officials, business and industry, or professionals. And we think, like I did for 30 years, that through that I was going to be able to make a difference. No, the die is cast already. That pattern of how that city works was cast way before now. And we are just running around in little circles trying to rearrange all of this stuff. So it's obviously not going to work. If I look at the impact of all of this, if you look under the gated enclaves, great profit, great environment, I would suggest that very poor community. If you look at the business side of things, great profit, do they put back in the environment or to the community? After the event with corporate social investment. But it's not enough. We've created the problem and then we try and solve it. And if you look at the rest of us, we eke out an existence. For many people in the poorer income places, they don't even have any sense of investment, because even the RDP houses that have been built do not actually hold much investment value. The environments are really awful. And community, yeah, I mean, we've just heard about the kinds of problems in communities. People are living under siege, and we actually need to make a difference. So continuing to work in this way is not going to work. So we've started working on an extension to the city of Cape Town, because currently there's a housing backlog of 400,000 households, set to grow to 720,000 households by the year 2030. That is huge. That is a whole city size worth of people that need housing. We've got to find a large enough piece of land to be able to make a difference. And we've got to make that difference in such a way that people can afford to have that housing. And how this is done is that we have to plan big, but we're going to be building it one community at a time. So now what we've done is leaders, governance, capital, and policy are brought into alignment. we are using the pillars of economy, education, health, governance, regenerative settlement design, and building homes, not houses, as a way of integrating all of those things that fulfill the things that we aspire to in our lives. And most importantly, in looking at the way in which the space and the form of the city is made, we are bringing together the way officials, business, industry, and professionals work. And what we're saying is that the way in which we make the city, we're planning the big thing, but every piece of city, every neighborhood that we build must actually have all the ingredients in it that we can actually have the kind of life that we desire, that you can walk to work, that the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker are in your community, that the kind of programs that can be accessed are accessed by everybody in those same locations. And we do that by remixing the way industry, business, residential, affluent, poor are all brought together. Because if we don't embrace that future, that we can have one common future, we are going to keep opening that newspaper every morning and living in fear, because that's what we all do. Whether we're rich or we're poor, we all live in fear. If we do this, we begin to understand a different way in which profit works. In this scenario, business will still make a profit. It will be part of rebuilding the environment and the community. The industrial stuff can also do all of that, because the way in which we rethink the byproducts of industry and the byproducts of settlement actually become resources that we actually recapture. You know that in a city, up to 80% of volume of material that comes in every day is water, and we spit it out at the end of the pipe, and we waste it. And we're short of water. In 3 years' time, Cape Town is going to have a shortage of water. That is unforgivable. There's a different way we need to think about this. If you take the residential fabric, every citizen should be a shareholder and an investor, and it's possible to do this. Now, how do we do this? The way we do this is that there's a framework that we've created and a business plan that puts together the way in which property development and housing work together, such that even the poorest of people can access a good quality home, and they don't have to be ghettoized and polarized in the spaces that we create. How that works is that when you design a city of 200,000 households, over 20 years, you are delivering 10,000 units per year. Now that is an enormous amount of doors, windows, materials, furniture, schools, all the things that we need. So what you are creating is a very, very long and steady economy with large numbers of jobs. 300,000 jobs over 20 years. Our model allows us to calculate the kinds of jobs that can be created, skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled. Not only that, we know that currently we are going to be starting with largely unskilled jobs that will need to be created. However, we can shape the trajectory of that economy so that when we come out that other end with the kinds of inputs of education, health, etc., and we've heard wonderful things today here about what we can do, we'll come out with a knowledge sector economy and with a green sector economy. And that's possible. It's in our grasp. Why? Because we're going to start with one community at a time, and we're going to build the next and the next. Now, we're dealing with uncertainty, and we're dealing with rapid change. So one community at a time will also allow us to actually adjust and learn as we move forward. So I want to then say that so this new company that we've created has put together a framework and the structure to be able to create these cities. And what that does is it then allows tangible choices to people to be able to access what they need to fulfill their lives. What it does is it provides returns for investors as well as people who come and reside in this city. And most importantly, it unlocks thousands and thousands of opportunities for many, many people to be involved. And the most important thing is that we don't know what that future looks like. So with this process-driven approach that we have taken on, we're going to be tacking innovation, technology, and change, and we're going to be harnessing those winds every step of the way with each community that we build. So I hope you watch the space and come and help us do it. Thank you very much.